Can you guys give us a head count?
100%. Yeah, we can send you along afterwards as well.
Yeah, afterwards.
Mhm.
Just because it helps with our reporting,
Sure. Yep,
the
sure will.
bosses want to know how many people were
And
present.
David, welcome everybody. So we're still just chit chatting on getting things set up so y'all can get settled. I am going to launch a poll for you to respond to while we're waiting for people to trickle in. Just trying to get a feel for who is out there. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen, just asking whether you're a teacher or not. And if you are a teacher, what are you teaching? Not what are you teaching, but where are you teaching? On the what are you teaching front, if you guys want to find the chat, which should be, if you're not familiar with Zoom, it's on the bottom of the screen, somewhere around here on my screen. And you can open up the chat and just throw out who you are, where you're from. We highly encourage people to chat with each other, because it's not just a matter of what do we have to share, but what are your questions and what are you sharing with each other in that chat. So find the chat, open it up. Make sure it's set to everyone for messages. Sometimes it defaults to host and attendees, or so hosts, I should say, and panelists. So you can throw out there what you're teaching, or I'm sorry, not what you're teaching, throw out where you're from, what you do, etc. And then feel free to use that space to communicate with each other as well. And as David said, ask lots of questions, super key. We're going to get into introductions here in a second once people have settled in. But we don't have like a set, this is exactly what we're going to talk about type of thing going on. We have a bunch of ideas that we want to share, but if you guys have questions that are interesting to you, throw them out there, and it might take us in an interesting direction that we can jive on. We have more time. We have a little more time than we have allotted for content, so we have some time for Q&A. We will either address those things in line if they are pertinent, or we'll get to them sort of at the end, and we'll address them at the end. Looking at the survey results, let me go ahead and just end this poll. Looks like we're pretty evenly split between fully online instructors and people who are not teaching. There's a few face-to-face and a few hybrid instructors in the room, so that's good to know. And that works out well, because this class will play well in a fully online world, and the ideas we're talking about will as well. All right, so let's dive into getting the webinar started now. So we're a couple minutes in. First off, thank you to UPSIA. They are the ones that helped us host this and help us get the word out. If you're not familiar with UPSIA, please check out their website. It's spelled UPCEA. And a great organization, does do a great job of promoting things like this. So if you heard about them through UPSIA, great. If you didn't, if you heard about them through our own emails and such, feel free to check them out. And now introduction. So my name's Marcus. I'm the owner of Harmonize Learning, and I have with me Amy and Dave. So Amy, do you want to introduce yourself and then pass it on to Dave?
Sure. I'm Amy Conway. I'm an instructional designer at Auburn Online. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Ketchen. I am a professor at Auburn and do quite a bit of online teaching, and some of that we're going to talk about today.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen at this point, and we're going to give you just a little framing about what we're going to cover today. Stop sharing the poll. Don't need that anymore. Let me get my Mentimeter going. One of these days, I'm going to learn how to use Zoom better, even though I'm on it every single day. Okay. Let me now share. All right, and supposedly if I present now, y'all will see biggest fears you have about AI in your class. Everyone see that? I'm going to drop this link to participate into the chat and give you a framing of what we're talking about today. So when we think about AI use in class, there's pros, there's cons. I have 2 questions in this Mentimeter, actually 3, but you only have to answer the first 2 now as you see fit. And the first one I want to start with is, what are your fears about what's happening in AI in the classroom? Because a lot of instructors are coming to us and saying, like, I'm exhausted by all of this AI participation. Like, they're filling out all the discussion posts, they're doing the assignments. ChatGPT just released a browser that can actually complete everything in your Canvas class for you if it's text-based. So what kind of fear do you have around it and such? Because what we're going to talk about today is sort of this 2-pronged approach to doing good online education while also sort of combating ChatGPT use and or AI use. And the thing that we're going to focus on is actually what Amy and Dave have focused on a lot in this class, which is authentic assessment. So it's like, how do we combat AI, but how do we do that in a way that is good pedagogy? So that we're not taking on the workload of being the police. We're not taking on the workload of having to punish students. Instead, we are just doing things in a way that circumnavigate this. We do a bunch of different takes on these, of different ways to do this. You'll see these in a lot of the webinar series we do. Those are available at harmonizedlearning.com in the events section. But like I said, today it's all about authentic assessment. And Amy and Dave, did I cover that well? Anything else you want to add into that sort of overview?
I think that's great.
Cool. All right, so it looks like we'll cover these two to start with as we lead in, and then pick it up from here. But I think as people can see, lack of learning is the biggest concern, right? How do we? Students are, yes, they're cheating, or yes, they're becoming dependent on AI. But the real problem with that is not that they're cheating. The real problem with that is that they are not learning. I see lack of critical thinking, which is another one on that. And so it's I love the fact that lack of learning became the huge center to that. But when we look at benefit of the class that it could have to the class, if you want to fill out this one, you can as well. And we'll actually come back to this one since I didn't forward the slide quickly enough for you, and then you can fill this out, and we will come back to it towards the end as well. Okay. So first off, authentic assessment. Amy, do you want to take us through what authentic assessment is? Because the word authentic, when I first heard about it years ago, threw me because it didn't mean what I thought it meant. So
Yes,
take us through that.
absolutely. So that's a great point, Marcus. We want to make sure that we're using the same terminology. When we talk about authentic assessment, we're talking about a way to assess students that requires them to think about and do things that are applicable to what they may be doing in the future. So the idea is that it combats this idea of what am I doing here? Why am I taking this class? What do I have? What is the purpose of this? And addresses that directly by asking students to think about and respond to things that require them to apply it to maybe their life, their community, their work. Application is the key takeaway for authentic assessment. And one of the things that does, and we'll get into this more, is that addresses the issue, ideally, of student motivation. So students are going to be more motivated if they can see the relationship between how they're being assessed and then what they're learning to what they may be doing in the future. They develop more of that motivation. That's just one component of motivation, but that is one of the things that authentic assessment does.
I'm going to come back to that motivation because I remember you asked me to speak about that in that initial paragraph, and I totally forgot because that's how my brain and ADHD rolls. But some examples for you just to tie it into classes. Like, let's say you're having your students write an essay. Have them write an essay about their college application, because that's something that they need to learn to write an essay, but they also need to learn to apply to college, and they're going to have to apply to college. And so making it something that's applicable to something they're doing in the future is necessary. And so that's something my son's doing in high school right now, right? He's doing essay writing, but he's doing it for a reason that is applicable to his real life. Same thing around doing resume building. Like if you need to learn to build a resume, target it and apply for a specific internship that applies to you or something. And so it's all about this. Make it real for your students. If they're doing accounting, make them do a personal budget for themselves in the upcoming month, as opposed to just doing a budgeting exercise in general. So how can you make it applicable to them? Are those fair use cases, Amy? Does that sound?
Yeah, I think those are a great start.
Cool. So I want to come back to Amy's motivation thing, because there's actually some research that shows that motivation also helps combat cheating, not AI cheating specifically. The research isn't that new. But if your students can be motivated to do something, they're less likely to cheat because they care. And if they care, they're less likely to cheat. And there's a couple factors to motivation, and we'll allude to some of these throughout. Obviously, making it applicable to their life is a big one. Like, why am I here? Why am I taking this class? Oh, you've explained it. I know why. I see, therefore I am motivated to learn. But also instructor energy, instructor presence, feeling like they have an instructor that is there and cares about them is a pretty key part. as well. And that's one of the studies I read was actually like if the instructor was in there cheerleading and being positive and mentoring and touching folks and such, the cheating dropped. I think it was by like 20%. I'd have to go find the study, but it was significant compared to the exact same subject taught with the exact same assignments without an instructor who was in there being sort of the present mentor, encouraging force in what they were doing.
Marcus, there's a whole theory out there that I think it's self-determination theory. I may have that wrong, but it talks about those basically those three things that you were saying being the keys to motivation of that students feel competent in what they're doing. So that can be achieved through the way the course is designed, through autonomy. And we'll talk about that as a part of some of the things that we look at. And then that feeling of relatedness or connection to the people in their class, their instructor. So all of those things, those three things are kind of the key, according to this theory, are the key to motivation. And I think that supports what you were just saying.
Nice. I like the competence one too, because I was reading an article recently that if the students feel like they're going to fail, they won't try to dive into the task. They're not as motivated. But if they feel like you're scaffolding them up to the point where they can succeed, then they're way more motivated to continue to succeed as well. So that comes a lot into course design, which is definitely Amy's forte and not my forte as well. Dave, as in the instructor in the room, presence, motivation, like how do you think about this? Like your role of grader versus motivator versus mentor versus et cetera?
Probably the biggest thing in an online setting to me is communication. So I communicate with the students on average twice a week, once on Sundays to launch a new module, and then midweek to remind them about the deliverables that are due that week. And they're not canned emails. I put some of my personality in there. I might make reference to something that's going on in the world. So, like, for example, Auburn football is a big deal. And so currently, if we win the game, I might mention something about that. But, if we're emphasizing authentic, then it's important for the instructor to be authentic too, and not just be robotic.
Cool. All right, so I got a bunch of examples on the authentic assessment and things that you feel you might struggle with. I'm going to table this. We're not going to discuss these now, but I'm going to leave this one open. So if you have the URL, you can go ahead and continue to contribute to it. And then when we get to the Q&A period at the end, we'll come back to this and we will, if any of these jump out to us or any things new you've added, we'll discuss those briefly while we're waiting for questions to come in as well. Having said that, don't forget you can put your questions into the chat at any time. And David will be monitoring those. I should have introduced David at the start. David, my apologies. David runs a lot of our webinars. I'm such a bad person for that, sorry. He jumped in the last minute because we had so many people sign up. He's gonna help us with the chat and monitoring questions and such. So he'll be in there sharing links, sharing URLs, and if we miss the questions, he'll be surfacing them for us as we go. All right, I think I'm going to turn it over to, so here's what the rest of the agenda looks like. We've kind of framed what we're going to talk about now, but now we're going to go into an actual course and look at it. Dave's going to cover the course structure up until the point of real student data from a FERPA perspective. So he's going to walk through the course structure, going to talk about the why. They're going to lead in a little bit with kind of how did they think about the course design, et cetera. So it's just going to be kind of a riff on why they did things the way they did them in the course. And even some fun AI elements they introduced into the course. At that point, he's going to hand it over to me because I faked some of their assignments that they were doing so that we have fake student data so we can actually show you what some of the student submissions looked like as well. And then we'll roll into a Q&A. We are going to demo these things in Harmonize. So a quick note of when Harmonize and my company comes into this, when I'm demoing the assignments, it's going to be done in Harmonize, but it is not a requirement. We're not trying to do a sales pitch for Harmonize. At the very end, if you're interested in Harmonize, if you're not already a Harmonize user, I'll talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes at the end. If you're not interested, you don't have to hang out, but that's the only time we'll actually talk about features of Harmonize and try to brag on them a little bit. So up until that point, it's just going to be demoing what they've done already as well. So that's the lay of the land. I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it over to Dave and Amy. And I don't know, it's up to you guys if you want to dive right into the walkthrough, if you want to have some how did you design the course up front, thinking about these things. We didn't script it that well, so I don't know which one you're planning on doing.
Dave, you want to talk a little bit about the course?
Yeah, I think with any college course, there ought to be a strong justification for its existence. And I think about this in terms of when we were all in high school and you had to memorize how to figure out or how to calculate the volume of a cone. Like, when am I ever going to use that? Why is that useful information? So, in thinking about this particular course, it's really based on the recognition that most of what leads people to be successful in organizations and in their own career are soft skills. And there was a huge study of about 500,000 people at leading universities, Harvard, Stanford, and some others. And they calculated that over 80% of one's success is tied to these interpersonal abilities and your mindset and all those sort of softer things. But if you look at the typical university curriculum, it's all hard skills. It's, spreadsheets and chemistry formulas, et cetera. So the idea behind this particular course was, let's give people an entire course on life skills, soft skills, people skills, et cetera. And we used a couple of books for that. I don't know how well this will show up with this background. It's always there. And now I'm going to
It
disappear.
disappeared. Yeah.
So the main book is called Why Not Win. It's written by a guy who grew up dirt poor in Montgomery, Alabama, and now owns 7 McDonald's franchises, serves on multiple boards of directors. Thank you, Marcus, for that link. And it's a relatively short book. It's only about 160 pages, but the theme you get from it is how you relate to other people drives how successful you're going to be in life. We're probably all familiar with the saying, sexist language aside, no man is an island, right? And that's really a big theme of this book as well as the course. And then we have a second book, which probably also won't show up, which is a graphic novel version of the same story, which is great because it appeals not just to younger folks, but anybody who's more of a visual learner. Some folks just don't want to sit down and read a book. So I'm a big believer in edutainment, the combination of education and entertainment, and the graphic novel sort of fits that. Um, so that's sort of the backstory of the course. And I was at a meeting with Auburn Online, the whole community, and said, hey, I want to develop this course. And so they were looking around the room for a volunteer. And before anybody else could even react, Amy like leapt up and was like, I want this course. This course is mine. So we developed it together, and I think we're both super proud of it.
Nice. And I put the links. I didn't actually realize you were an author on on the graphic novel side of things as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're all in on this.
I am all in. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Amy, anything from you on the course design side, or why you jumped up and waved your hands around so frenetically?
Well, it sounded like well, for one, it's something very different than any of the other courses that I had developed here. So I really liked the idea of focusing on soft skills and seeing what could be done with that. And then at this point, I had just seen the graphic novel and the creativity that went into that, and just kind of that approach to learning. That was really intriguing to me, and I wanted to see what could be done, what might be produced from all of that. So it was something different, which is kind of a hallmark of instructional design. Let's do
Sure.
something different. Let's try something new.
Yeah, so Dave's going to start sharing the course now and walk you through some of the ideas behind the structure of it. They should apply to all your courses. I will say, if you're teaching something that is not a soft skill, throw it out in the chat, or actually even if you are, and we'll take some time if we have it at the end, and we'll brainstorm like ways to do authentic assessment in classes that it doesn't seem as applicable to. I'm not saying we'll succeed at that, but we can spend a little time playing with that at the end as well. So put that out in the chat if you're teaching something where you're like, I don't know how to do authentic assessment in whatever the case may be.
So does the screen sharing work? I can't tell, of course.
Management 4970.
Oh, awesome.
Right.
So this is the course, Winning Skills for Success in Business and in Life. And it's 15 modules. And every module is structured the same. So students don't have to guess what they're getting into in any given module. By about the third or fourth one, they're real comfortable with the format. They understand what's expected of them, what's coming up, etc. Um, I think we were going to walk through one of the modules. Is that right, Marcus?
That is correct. Highlight some of the how you did your assignments, the AI claymation stuff you were doing was super cool.
Super.
How you thought about the structure of each of those modules, the consistency of them.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick winning by respecting time because that's something that a lot of us, maybe all of us, have trouble with, time management. So this is the overall list of the modules. One of the things that Auburn Online does that I think is really cool is there's always this module 0, which is basically introductory material for the students. What I like to do is not just overview the course, but I also give them an optional assignment to introduce themselves and earn extra credit. And I tell them this is the only extra credit opportunity you're going to get in the entire course. So I highly recommend that you do it. And that mitigates most of the requests at the end of the semester for extra credit. Not all of them, but it does get rid of most of them.
The other thing that does that I really like is it gives students the chance to use the tool. So in this case, it's Harmonize, practice using the tool in the way that they'll be doing it later in the course in basically a no stakes environment because I mean, it is extra credit, but it's not something that they can really mess up and it hurt them.
Yeah, so it just sort of personalizes the experience. Do you have a preferred nickname? Where are you from? Where will you be doing this course? Do you have a pet? I really like dogs, so I always especially emphasize dogs. Is there a non-relative person whose soft skills you admire? We we had to add in non-relative because everybody was pointing to their parents, and that's not necessarily super useful. So um,
Well, let's dwell on that for a second because that was the very first authentic assessment touch you did, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
make this relevant. We're going to talk about soft skills. You need to think about in your life who had soft skills that you admired. And I'm guessing this ties into your final assignment when we get there.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's the first time, and it happens in module 0 where it's like already start relating this course in some way to your personal
right,
life.
right.
And so they could use AI to make up something along this, and we'll talk about the structure of this in a little bit. But they leverage some video, which we'll get into when we delve into the assignments to make sure that they're keeping it authentic. But it's also like like I would love to sit here and think about who had soft skills that I admired. And I don't have time to do the assignment on the fly, so I won't try to do that.
Right, right.
Anyway, yeah, back to you.
Yeah, and then as you kind of previewed there in part 2, we ask the students to provide video responses to at least 2 of their classmates. And students being students, they're going to almost always shoot for whatever the minimum is. So, nobody is responding to 5 of their classmates. They all respond to 2, which is fine, but it gets them comfortable with speaking on video, which I think is a really helpful skill for them. And again, it kind of personalizes the whole thing. So we ask them to talk about maybe some commonalities that they have with the person they're responding to. Maybe we both have Labrador retrievers and your dog is really cute or something like that. Now, I know Marcus said don't necessarily emphasize harmonize, but one thing I do want to mention is that harmonize, if you ask it to, will help you write this stuff and it will, using AI, give you some possible elaborations to put in here. So Amy and I did rely on that. Now, we didn't use exactly necessarily what the AI would provide us, but it gave us a really good starting point.
Cool. I totally forgot I was supposed to demo that part as you at the end. So I'll go set
Oh,
that up
no,
now
no, that's
while you
fine.
do.
So back to the modules. That's module 0. Every module, like I said earlier, is set up the same way, the same sort of structure. Each one has a discussion board as well as a quiz. One of the things we do with the quizzes is they're relatively low stakes. So they're 3 points per quiz for a total of 45 throughout the course, out of 100 for the entire course. So basically, each quiz is 3% of your grade. And the hope is that the stakes are so low that people won't bother cheating. I think whenever somebody wants to cheat, there's at least some moral qualms about it. And, what's the cost benefit to cheating here? The cost is that I feel bad about myself. The benefit is I can get a better score. Well, in this case, that might mean the difference between a 2 and a 3. So hopefully the incentives don't point towards cheating. So I'm just going to scroll down to the module that we want to walk through, which is number 14. Now, one thing I will say, critical of myself, is I feel like the last two modules are the best. And I'm not sure. Now, that's great if you're a musician and you're putting on a concert, right? You want to save your two biggest hits for the end of the show so everybody goes home happy. But, in this particular case, it may have made more sense to do our really great stuff up front so that it influences what students are working on the rest of the way. So that's just kind of food for thought for others as they're developing their own courses. So I don't know, Marcus, if the sound will work on these things. Do you know?
It depends on if when you shared your screen, did you say share my sound as well?
I did.
So
I did not.
then I would probably skip the videos and sound then and just describe them.
So every module starts out with a little 45-second or so teaser video. And it's actually just music. So you can get a little taste of, in this case, it's 30 seconds. You get a little taste of what we're all about here.
Did you use AI to generate your videos?
No, I did them all myself.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did
Well,
not see that coming.
no, well, I mean, I used clips from Adobe and patched them all together. And we always close that video with "Let's learn more." That's kind of our tagline. But I kind of think of these as like the successories posters that you used to see a lot in break rooms, just sort of that little teaser that maybe is a little bit corny, but also gets you thinking about the topic. So then we basically have our little plan, our little layout of the different pages. So one of the things that Auburn Online is borderline obsessive about is learning objectives. I this used to drive
But of
me.
course, that's a good thing.
Dave was getting ready to say it used to drive me nuts, and Amy's like,
to,
it's a good thing.
it used to drive me nuts, but they kind of made me a believer. So
You have a
everything,
convert, Amy.
yeah, there you go. Everything in the module is built around these learning objectives. We also have readings, one from each book, and then an external reading, which would typically be some sort of magazine article. We also have 3 tasks that they have to complete, one of which is not graded, 2 of which are graded.
Pause for a second here.
Yeah.
I noticed your learning objectives were lacing in authentic assessment as well to some degree. Like you're always tying this back to the human for the motivation perspective. I call them the student. I don't guess I have to call them humans, but I love the fact that you're lacing that through all the way as well. So
yeah, I mean that's the centerpiece of the third one there. What's a situation where you had the opportunity to respect time, and how did you handle it?
And just as Dave is saying, this is the same format for all of the modules. So that reduces the cognitive load on the students. They're not trying to figure out, where do I find this? How do I know what's due? Dave tells them on Sunday, he reminds them on Wednesday, and then it's always here at the at a glance page. So it's consistent throughout the semester for them, which based on research as well as anecdotal conversations with my own children who are students, that is so meaningful when they know they don't have to figure out what's happening in a course. It's just clear for them.
Surveys show this is the #1 complaint about online education. Every instructor does it every different in every module, and the students spend so much of their time trying to figure that out versus learning. So consistency, yes, key.
Right. The second thing they run into is this roadmap, which basically shows the journey that we're taking to try to understand soft skills. We have a little pop-up that'll include a quote, many times from history, where we're trying to illustrate the timelessness of these concepts. So in this case, it's from ancient Greece. From there, we have 3 stories involving the theme of the module. In this case, we start out with football coach Vince Lombardi, who expected his players to always be 15 minutes late, or 15 minutes early. A story from the author of the book, Larry Thornton. And then embedded in that is a podcast episode where Larry and I talked about winning by respecting time. And then we also featured craft breweries in every module because craft breweries are cool. People enjoy learning about them, and it gives us a consistent industry to talk about across all the different topics.
Was this entire thing just an excuse to talk about football and craft breweries?
Well, maybe. No, in terms of that first example, it varies widely. So in another module, Oprah Winfrey is featured, Richard Branson, wide variety of different people. Dave Dahl, the guy who founded Dave's Killer Bread, who actually spent some time in prison. So a lot of different people there. This is my favorite kind of stuff from the whole course, these little interactives that Amy and I created together. So this gives you a chance to put in practice some of the things that we're talking about. Imagine that you are in charge of a meeting of 10 people that is scheduled to start at 10 a.m. When 10 a.m. arrives, 2 key people are not there. Which of the following actions would you take? Now, I know that nobody on this call has run into this. I know that everybody in your organization shows up exactly on time for every meeting, but not the case everywhere. So I'll pick the wrong answers first. Yeah, go ahead.
Question came in for you, Dave. So you're doing these little learning activities. Nikki asked sort of what the grade breakdown is. How do you weight the different parts of this course? Because obviously this piece is ungraded, but you have quizzes, you have a discussion. What other projects are there? Like, how do you think about the grade distribution when you're trying to influence people?
Absolutely. So let's go back to the syllabus and so this is the breakdown here. Each of the discussion boards, 3 points, each of the quizzes, 3 points, and then a final project, which we're going to talk about eventually, is worth 10%. So I did want to mention, David, if you could put my email address in the chat, anybody that wants to learn more about the course, I'm happy to respond after the seminar. We also have digital badges based on this material that might be of interest to some folks. So again, just feel free to email me and I'll answer whatever questions folks might have.
Note on time, Dave, you have about maybe 5 minutes to cover the rest of the structure of it, and then
Okay.
If that's too rushed, I can modify your assignment.
No, not at all. Not at all. So let's see where we were. We had just gone through these, and I wanted to show you these pop up. So ask the group to sit tight while you go find the 2 stragglers. Not a great idea. This might get the meeting underway, but it signals that you're responsible for them getting to the meeting, not them. Tell the group, let's wait a few minutes for others to get here. This is what usually happens in my experience. This avoids repetition of information, but it unfairly penalizes those who are on time. And then our correct option, just start the meeting promptly. Yes, this respects the time of the other 8 people, sends a message to the stragglers that they need to do better the next time. So I think students find this kind of interaction really helpful. And it's a zero risk uh, situation. There's no points involved. So then we have a series of short interview clips with different folks about, in this case, respecting time, time management. We also have a practice question associated with each of those videos, and then we use those questions in our quiz bank.
Real quick note, you'll see Dave doing a bunch of stuff with video and podcasts, and or maybe Amy is, both are together, I suppose. Universal design for learning, putting this content in a different format for students to consume. Also really great to sidestep AI, really hard to grab that podcast and have AI consume it and summarize it versus if it's just a reading. Once again, students can easily grab it and be like, yeah, write me a summary of this, and then use that to influence my assignment.
The next thing we have is a research roundup where we talk about some actual research studies that are relevant to the topic at hand. And I'll just show you a little tiny bit of this. One of the things I did to try to make this a little more entertaining was I got on Temu and bought a bunch of cheap Western apparel. And so I have, cheap cowboy hat, cheap mustache, etc. And students get a kick out of that.
I
But
mean,
I'm basically,
it's making it fun, but you're making it motivating, right? Like that's the
yeah,
other thing. Like
exactly.
you're present, you're invested, that you care, so obviously they need to care.
Yeah, and people look forward to seeing what the outfit's going to be. And it also reinforces that the things that we're talking about are based in science. It's not just, a motivational book that somebody wrote that's just cheerleading, that there's real science behind what we're talking about.
And a
Um,
lot of these things clearly communicate to students that an actual person put thought and time into designing this, developing the content. It's obvious this is not boilerplate that somebody bought from somewhere. So that also demonstrates instructor presence and that there's a human behind it,
Don't
which increases
hesitate to,
motivation.
yeah, don't hesitate to come on video, record something, throw it into a page. Even if your hair's messed up and everything, students love that, right? You're there, you're the act, you're a real human, you're teaching them.
yeah. So winning skills on the screen, we pull something from TV or Hollywood and put it in there that relates to the module. We give them a question to ponder. Assessing your own respective time. This gave them a bunch of Likert scales. And the thing that's really cool about this is after they answer these questions, they can compare their answers to the aggregate answers from everybody who's taken this survey before. So let's say I answer this first question, I leave things till the last minute every time. When I then compare that to the aggregate by clicking on the results, I might see that, geez, very few people actually answered every time with regard to leaving things to the last minute. So maybe I need to do better on that dimension. So it's again, a no risk opportunity for students to learn about themselves and hopefully develop some better habits. Okay,
What survey tool did you use, Amy, to embed that?
Qualtrics.
Qualtrics. Okay.
So then we have our discussion board where, and this is where Harmonize came into the picture. You can see that this is a new thing that we just added. Friendly reminder, you're not allowed to use generative AI to create your post because we did have some instances of that happening. We tried to design these things so that people would be compelled and motivated to talk about their own experience. People like to share about their experiences. In some cases, it's cathartic. And so we're asking them about, in this particular case, think about people that that are chronically late. How might you talk to them and motivate them to change that mentality that it's okay to be late. From there, we have a quiz. We also ask them for a little bit of feedback. How engaging was the material? How informative was it? And then an open-ended question.
Do you do that every module?
Every module, it's the same questions. Yeah.
Amy, is that a standard for all of Auburn Online?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have a little clip from Larry Thornton, whose books this is all based on, kind of giving a final thought on respecting time, just a real concrete tip. And this was something we added fairly recently. It was based on student feedback saying, hey, I'd love to have that one little thing that I could implement today based on that module. And so in this particular case, he's talking about, hey, the next time you have an appointment, just leave 5 minutes early and see what happens. You'll probably notice when you get to the traffic light, you're not stressed out. You'll have a much easier experience if you just simply leave 5 minutes earlier than you're used to.
Dave, there's
And
a
so you
question that
don't end
came
up
in.
as this guy chasing
Oh.
the bus.
Well, that's a good segue. So you built those with AI, right, to make it more fun?
I did. I put a bunch of AI images. This module doesn't happen to have a bunch of them. Some of them have a lot more. And the idea is these characters make people smile, number one. And number two, they're race, gender, age free. And so it kind of takes the burden away of making sure that the course is representative in terms of the images that we use. I don't have to worry about, geez, did I have too many men pictured in this module relative to the overall population? So the claymation monsters kind of check a couple of different boxes. They're fun and it makes my life a little bit easier as an instructor.
Question came in on your AI use from Mark. Do you reveal to your students where and when you use AI as an instructor in course design and teaching?
Nobody's ever asked. I mean, I guess I could put in some sort of note there that the Harmonize discussion boards were enhanced through AI,
Mhm.
but
And Amy,
I think
does
the
Auburn?
content was written with AI. So, in this course, Dave wrote all of the content. At Auburn
Yeah, so
Online,
it's
so the final product, if I used AI to help generate something, I inform the instructor that I used it to help, draft content or whatever. As far as whether or not the instructor notifies the students of that, I guess it depends on how much it's being used and in what capacity. So I think, but that's a good question.
yeah. And do you want to use it as an example? Like if you're allowing them to do AI use, modeling that behavior by saying, yeah, we used Harmonize to generate the first pass at the instructions. But as with all AI, we then edited it and made sure it was exactly what we wanted. It got us
right,
80% of the way there or something along those lines as well.
right.
I did put out a rubric scale. Actually, Dave, do you want me to take over and I'll switch
Sure,
into
yeah,
assignment mode
absolutely.
here? And I'll also share this rubric scale.
While you're pulling that up, Marcus, Dave, someone asked what AI tool you actually use to create those monster images.
Microsoft Designer.
Microsoft Designer. Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So I dropped a link to this already out there when we're talking about AI use. It's a rubric you can put at the start of your class. It's like, I'm going to add different levels. There's going to be times where it's okay to use AI and not. I dropped this link in because it's, again, some widespread use of, here's the different levels. And that way students know upfront, this is a no AI assignment versus this is a yes AI assignment and at what level type of thing. So I put that out in the chat for you. All right, let's get into some of the discussions to start with. So I've faked some student data here so you can see what he was having his students do. I'm inside of Canvas. Yeah, well, that's what you're using, so that makes sense. the whole thing here was let's get students participating in a way that builds some of that community perspective and sort of connection, but also without having them use tons of AI use. I had the instructions hidden, but there was those same instructions Dave was showing as well. And then each of the students was asked to submit something in text to start with, because easy enough to write. We don't have to do video for everything. But then he asked his students to respond in video to each other. And so the students would come through and actually only use video to respond, which creates a better connection. Like you can see, you can hear from your classmates. If they don't want to come on video, you could do this with audio as well, or just have them do any sort of multimedia so that they're keeping it authentic as well. But if you're doing non-text-based stuff, they can't easily use AI for that, and it's just better from a enrichment perspective. And so, the two students would come in and comment on what they were doing, and we're sort of building that connection, but we're doing it in a way that is not naturally easily done by AI.
Yeah, so let me offer a confession real quick, which is, enrollment in my course is 50 students, which means there'd be 100 videos in every module. And so I do not watch the videos. I respond to all of the written comments, people's original posts. I leave them some sort of response. But in terms of the actual videos, I'm not watching those.
Yep. Yeah, no, and you're not alone, I will say. Most instructors are not reading everything. And that's one of the top requests that we're building out this spring is we're actually generating transcripts for all the students' videos because instructors want to be able to quickly read what the student said while still encouraging that connectivity and having students watch each other's, but they're like, I don't got time to watch 53-minute videos. That's just not my thing. I can't.
You can also in the settings set up, a minimum video length or a maximum video length, minimum word count. You can set up number of replies, all of those things, so that that aspect of it is automatically checked and graded. Now, I think Dave doesn't choose to have the auto grade go into the grade book so that he can go through and just do some checking, some person checking rather than leaving it all up to AI. But those are some guardrails that you can set up that make things a little easier.
Right. And then that all leads to, so throughout the course, he's doing these, get on camera, speak to each other, communicate, think about people you communicate with, all this authentic assessment back to your real life. And then this one was the one that brought us to this webinar, where it's just like, I think the beautiful case. And Dave, do you want to describe this final assignment that you were working on?
Yeah, so I basically ask them to find somebody who's quite a bit older than them, at least 10 years or so, who's been successful in life, and interview that person about how people skills and soft skills have facilitated their success. And so all of a sudden, the student is now in the role of the interviewer, which I play a lot in the different modules where I interviewed a whole bunch of different people. And so I think students really enjoy that aspect because, it's hard to find an opportunity to just have a one-on-one with a successful person. Like, what's the reason why we would put this together? What's the reason why the person would say yes? But if you can go to them and say, well, I have this course assignment. They told me to pick somebody successful. I really admire you. Would you spend a few minutes with me talking about your success? And, naturally people are flattered and very willing to participate.
And not your parents, as per the original.
No relatives. Relatives are banned. No brothers or sisters or cousins or uncles or aunts.
Yeah, and back to the time thing, I don't think you did this, Dave, but if you have a smaller class, you can in Harmonize do timestamp commentary. How did you actually provide feedback on these assignments, though? Because you had 50 of them.
Well, I watched them all. I basically did nothing else for 3 or 4 days and provided written feedback under the video. Yeah.
Did you limit the amount of time? Did you say, please, only 5-minute interview or edit it down to 5 minutes or anything along those lines?
I think I made it 10 or 12 minutes. The other thing, and then this is another confessional, lots of times I'll watch the videos on 1.5 speed because
I'm a 2x guy all the way.
I don't know that my brain works well enough to retain at 2x, but 1.5 I can handle.
I've had to train myself, and then I wonder why normal conversations go so slow. All right, and then on the topic of AI use, I'm actually going to leave you two things here. I should have actually pulled this blog article up. So there's a blog article on how to do this, but the reason I'm going to share it with you specifically is it has an AI tool. Love it when our website doesn't load fully. Yay! We have an AI tool that. Dave, can you go get the AI assessment scale link for me from the event section because it's not letting me load it.
I've got a blog post here.
Do you? Beautiful. Thank you. This blog post actually has an AI bot in it that will help you kind of restructure your assessments in this way.
Oh, neat.
And so what we did was we put some of these are authentic assessments, some of them are not, but they're all AI strategies, and there's a chatbot to do this. So when you're using AI to build your assessment, I'm going to do this in Harmonize, but if you don't use Harmonize, use ChatGPT, use whatever, use the chatbot that's in that article. And as you go through, you can do some basic settings, but the goal is like, let's do a interview of somebody local that is good at soft skills. Or I could even be like, make this an authentic assessment, help me brainstorm ideas along that line, so that we can get the basic structure of place. Video submission required, and no relatives. Oh man, I spelled that wrong enough that even AI can't understand it. And put in your learning objectives, which David actually shared a learning objective generator out in the chat. And Dave, if you want to put that one out again, if you can give those to AI, it's going to be better. If you don't have them, no big deal. But you could even take learning objectives out to the AI realm and brainstorm with it and be like, how do I make these authentic assessment? So that when you're getting that first pass of instructions, you can look at it, see if it's something that's close to what you want to do. And if it's not, just tell AI, something different as you go through until you find something that's close. And then you can pull in and edit as well. And then, pull it into your editor and work on it to be like, these are the things I want you to do. And so you can really lean on AI to take an existing assessment, paste it in, and just be like, I need this to be an authentic assessment. How do I do that? I need it to incorporate some multimedia. How do I do that? Give me some ideas to where you can actually then come through and have something that is a little more structured, such you can then turn around and edit. And I make up this number, but I feel like we can try to get you 80% of the way there. I don't know, Amy and Dave, you started with some of this, like you definitely edited a lot, right, to make it exactly what you wanted.
Fair. Yeah. Sometimes we would rerun the prompt and refine what we wanted it to say. Sometimes our prompts weren't very good, and so we realized we needed to do a better prompt. And then sometimes it just didn't. We didn't like what it gave us, and so we would try again with more specific information.
Yeah, and that chatbot I gave you requires ChatGPT, but it's a free account to work with. And it's just going to say, hey, ask me about my existing assessment. It's going to spit out a bunch of questions you can choose to answer about your existing assessment. And then you can have a conversation to be able to drive it to the point where you can do that. So this is without Harmonize. This is just using ChatGPT directly as well. So
really quickly, there was a comment that was brought up that AI can produce videos of students. And maybe talk a little bit of the difference between AI, resilient versus AI proof.
Fair. Yeah, nothing's AI proof. They're right. So there's this website called HeyGen that will take a video of yourself and your voice, and you can then have it turn around and generate videos. That's why Amy was careful to call out the two-pronged approach of motivation plus some AI resilience with the authentic assessment and the instructor present side, all of that driving forward to make it, let's add enough friction to the AI doing it for me part, and let's add enough motivation that therefore I just don't want to do the AI path because I'm really into this class. And they've asked me something that I would have to spend so much time getting the video working, but I'm going to have to write the content about my Uncle Jack, no relatives, against Jack that works down the street to be able to interview him. And in an interview process, you can't do AI related videos. So Dave is right to call this out. AI resilient is not AI proof, and you're never going to be AI proof because frankly, there's billions and billions of dollars invested into AI.
Dave, we haven't talked about, since you added that little disclaimer on your Harmonized discussions that says, remember, don't use ChatGPT, don't use Gen AI. Did you see any differences in the responses?
I mean, anecdotally, I feel like yes, but we also changed some of the assignments to make them more AI resilient. So, for example, there previously was a discussion board that asked them to provide what they think are the three most important elements of leadership. Well, that's super easy to generate via AI. And to my disappointment, many students, the first run through talked about empathy. And it's like, wow, everybody thinks empathy is important. Isn't that interesting? Well, ChatGPT thinks empathy is important. So we changed that discussion board prompt to be more personalized, which made it more difficult to use AI.
Okay.
That is a great example. And the fact that you're doing this consistently means that if they do go and make something up with AI, even if they're going to get a varied story that bounces all over the place, that is not as consistent. You have this notion of personal brand, I think, in your course that also kind of tries to keep them on track.
Yeah, we have a whole module on building your personal brand.
Cool. All right, so questions. We have about 5 minutes left. I can take any questions that folks have. Here's the results from the main problem of incorporating this stuff into the class, time being the one that jumps out. So I'm curious, a class taught with authentic assessment versus not. Amy and Dave, do you have a feel for how much more time does it take to do authentic assessment versus more standard assessments?
Maybe a little more time consuming up front, but I'm not sure on an ongoing basis that that's a concern.
Yeah. Amy,
and actually, from the instructor standpoint, it's more interesting to read these kind of responses than to the traditional, what are your three biggest tips on leadership?
Yeah, you're like, shoot me now. I've read those three over and over and over again. Yeah, so maybe a little more time up front, but time well spent, and then more entertaining teaching time as well. The videos will take more time if you were to, like his final assignment definitely takes more time than other things, right? Like 100%. We hear there in that blog article I tossed out, there's ways to do that with peer review and get the students to critique each other's interview, which then gives you a summary to look at when you're the instructor coming in. And so you can offload some of that work if it's just simply 50 people. I mean, gosh, Dave, 3 days straight. Yeah, you must have been bleeding from the eyes, but I guess it was all local community members. So in a way,
well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff. It wasn't like watching paint dry or anything. It was really interesting to hear what these different leaders talked about in terms of soft skills contributing to their success.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a question out in the comment, logistics wise. We are going to send out the recording of this. David will get it processed and post it on our website and send it back out as well. So. All right. Other questions? I have about 3-4 minutes left. I don't remember, Amy and Dave, did we cover everything? I think we did, didn't we?
I think so.
I think so too.
Our timing was impeccable. A little pat on the back. Good job, everybody. All right. Last questions, if you have them. All right. There are 3 minutes left, so I'm going to just tell you about Harmonize for 3 minutes. You don't have to hang out for this part, but the whole idea of Harmonize is make those types of video assignments and video discussions or screen sharing directly in your LMS or whatever, make that easier to participate in. So think universal design for learning. Those were the three I was showing. It can be pretty much anything. We can have full peer review where you're critiquing videos and screen shares and grading things with the rubric as well. And it all lays out into a similar gallery view for students as well. So the idea is that all these ideas are harder to do in an LMS. You can do them. So by all means, dive in, but we just try to make that easier with a bunch of things to help with workload management, as well as making it easier for the students to participate, so you don't have to play ed tech person. And we believe in the tool enough, you can use it free for a semester. So if you do want to try it out at your school, that's how Auburn began. They did a free semester. Amy, were you involved in the free semester?
Yes.
Yeah, so they did a free semester, tried it out, made sure it worked for them and their students, and then they pick and choose which assignments they think could benefit from it and use it that way. So that was my 20-second sales pitch on Harmonize. Did any questions come in, Dave, that while I was talking about that, about the webinar itself?
Just compliments.
Yay, compliments are good. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll get the recording out to you. And yeah, let us know if someone's excited to Harmonize in the spring. Rock on. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time. And Amy and Dave, thanks so much. Appreciate it. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing and thanks for working on pulling it all together.
Yeah, I thought that went super well.
Yeah, I thought so too. We'll just, and we won't survey people, so if they disagree, we won't hear about it. And I think that's we don't do Auburn Online survey after every module. We throw it out there and hope it sticks, and then and then move on with our day. I appreciate you too.
Thank you.
See ya.